Hello and good evening, everyone. My name is Catherine, and I work with SEB Housing. This is the second information session for the 18 affordable rental housing units at Union 346 in Somerville. On your screen right now, if you have joined by Zoom video, there is information about translation services that are available to you should you require information in a language other than English. So you can contact us at the email address that is on your screen, which is union346@sebhousing.com, and then the phone number that's provided there as well, should you need translation services, and we'll accommodate you by providing answers to questions in your primary or preferred language. So I'm going to leave that up for just one more minute as we have people joining here. And if you have any questions during this session, you're encouraged to either type them into the chat in Zoom, or you can go ahead and unmute yourself. You were muted as you came into this session, so we can try to avoid just any outside noise during the presentation. All right. So the purpose of this information session is to give you a little bit more background information on the available units. We're also going to cover the application process, the eligibility process, the lottery itself, and what to expect after the lottery. This is a live session, so it's being recorded. You should have heard that disclaimer when you came into the room. If you need to reference it for any reason, or if you are watching this after the fact, you have found it, the recording will be on our YouTube channel. So you could search SEB Housing Union 346. And if you have any questions after tonight, union346@sebhousing.com is the best way to get in touch with us. You can also call us at that number that is on your screen. So if there's any logistical issues, not able to hear me, not able to see the screen, let me know now. And then throughout the session, I'll ask if you have questions as well. So just for some background information on who we are, so SEB Housing is an off-site affordable housing consulting group. We're not the on-site management or leasing team for the building. We've been hired by the management team or the developer to market the affordable units, conduct this information session, collect and review applications to determine applicants' eligibility, and then ultimately to run the lottery. So in the initial phases of the process, we at SEB Housing will be your main point of contact rather than the management office. But then further along in the process, you would be in touch with the on-site leasing team, which is corporate management, and they would take over as your main point of contact. There are a few steps in the process. The first step is to apply for the lottery and be found eligible for the affordable housing program based on that information that you submit on your lottery application. You'll be in touch with SEB Housing during that time. We can answer any questions you have on the affordable housing program. We'll process your application and we'll run the lottery. The second step in the process is if your position on the waiting list after the lottery is high enough, you will then be invited to complete a program certification with SEB Housing. And then that's the point in the process where you will need to supply supporting documentation, including income, asset, and tax information for your household. And then the third step in the process, if you've been approved by SEB Housing for the affordable housing program, you'll be put in touch with the leasing office or corporate management for lease eligibility. And that's separate from the screenings that SEB Housing does. And it could include credit, reference, rental history checks, background checks, that sort of thing. If you're found lease approved by the leasing office, that's when you'd be able to reserve and sign the lease for one of these apartments. The lottery applications are due on May 4th, which is a week and a half from today. So you want to get those in as soon as possible if you are interested in this opportunity. So if you haven't already, you can find the online application, or lottery application, I should say, on our website. If you go to sebhousing.com, and you click on affordable housing opportunities and you select I want to rent, since this is a rental opportunity, and then you'll see Union 346. You can click on that and you'll be taken to a page that's specific to this property that has a downloadable version of the application, information packet, as well as both the jot form link that you see on your screen right now to the online application. We do encourage you to complete the online applications. It will be the quickest way to ensure that your application is received right away. Once you've submitted the online application, you will also receive a confirmation email. If for any reason the online application is not an option for you, you can download the lottery application or request a paper application from us. On the website listing, the application and information packet are available in several languages, including English, Spanish, Haitian Creole, Portuguese, Chinese, and Nepali. If you're completing that paper application, you can submit it to us in one of several ways. You can email it to us, send it as an attachment to an email. You can send it by fax. The fax number is on the first page of the application. You can send it by regular mail, or our office is located in Needham. If you're in that area and you want to swing by and drop off your application in the drop box, it's located to the left of our building. It's checked every day and it's secure. We're at 257 Hillside Ave in Needham, if that is the best option for you. Again, we encourage you to get your application in using the online form, but like I said, if you're not able to do that, you can certainly submit a paper application. And we do encourage you to submit your lottery application early. It is fairly brief. It should only take you about 10 minutes to complete because there is no supporting income, asset, or tax documentation that's needed at this early stage. But it will be required after the lottery if you're one of the top households on the waiting list that are compiled after the lottery. So like I said, applications are due May 4th. They have to be submitted to us by that date in order to be considered for the lottery. You do not need to be a resident of Somerville to apply for this lottery. However, all of the affordable units are going to have local preference for residents of Somerville or applicants who work full-time in the city of Somerville. I'll talk a little bit more about that later on, but just wanted to let you know that. Households with documented needs for units that are accessible, disabled accessible, or hearing impaired accessible are going to get top priority for those units with those features as well. All right, so a little background information on the housing opportunity itself. So Union 346 does have a website. I have the link there, or the URL on your screen right now. If you go to the website, there is more information with floor plans, additional photos, and renderings of the property. There's a full list of amenities, that sort of thing, so you can go ahead and check that out. If you are interested in a tour, they are having a couple of open houses. And the first is going to be, they're both actually coming up this week. The first is going to be this Wednesday, April 26th, from 2 to 6 p.m. The second open house is going to be, I believe it's Saturday, Saturday the 29th, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. So 2 open house opportunities coming up if you're interested in seeing the property. Qualifying for an affordable unit takes a little bit of time, so they're expecting that first leases will be available for July 1st move-in. That doesn't mean you'll have to wait until July to sign a lease, but since this process takes a little bit of time, we still have to gather your income documentation and qualify you and all of that. You'd be looking probably at a July 1st move-in at the earliest. So Union 346, it's a new rental apartment opportunity. Located at 346 Somerville Ave in Somerville. The building is 6 stories plus a basement level, and it's serviced by an elevator. It's in the Union Square area of Somerville, which has a lot of shops and restaurants nearby. It is less than a half mile from the new MBTA Green Line extension station. The building itself is smoke-free and pet-friendly. The community amenities include a fitness center, a roof deck, bike storage and repair station, and an on-site park for residents. The units feature stainless steel appliances, in-unit laundry, and central heating and cooling. The affordable apartments are located throughout the building, from the basement level all the way up to the top, the 6th floor. And they're not identifiable in any way as being affordable to anyone passing by. Tenants will be responsible for all utilities, which include electric heat, electric hot water, cooking, electricity, and water and sewer charges. There are no parking spaces available for residents at the building. So if you drive, you own a car, you're going to want to take that car with you to this new apartment, you'll need to make arrangements for street parking. There are 18 affordable apartments that are going to be made available through this process. And they'll be rented to households that qualify across a broad range of income ranges related to the area median income of Boston. So on your screen, I have it broken down a little bit for you. There are units available in 3 different income tiers, as we call them. You could be in the 50% of area median income tier, 80%, or 110%. And I'll talk a little bit more about what that actually means in a few moments. Households who don't already have a voucher, if you do not have a Section 8 or MRVP subsidy, you can have incomes as low as about $29,500 per year for the 50% unit. Or if you're a 2-person household, you could qualify for the 110% units with incomes as high as $123,376 a year. So there's a broad range of households that might qualify for this opportunity. They would just be potentially in different income tiers. And as you can see, the different income tiers have different rent levels as well. When you're applying on your lottery application, you don't need to apply for a particular income tier. You're just going to apply for the unit size that you're interested in, either a studio or a 1-bedroom, and we at SCP Housing will make sure that you're placed onto the correct waiting list for the appropriate unit based on your household income. You can only qualify for one income tier, so either the 50%, 80%, or 110%. We encourage you to apply, list the best estimate for your household income on your application, and we will process your application within a week or 2. You'll get a notice back from us that will confirm the units you qualified for based on what you reported on your lottery application. If you have any questions once you get that letter from us or the email from us, by all means, let us know so we can clarify anything for you. So for the 50% AMI units, these are units that they're considered affordable for households who have incomes around 50% of the area median income. There are 7 apartments that are going to be available at that 50% level. They're going to be rented to households, like I said, that have household incomes that do not exceed 50% of the area median income. And we'll talk about what those levels are, the income levels, in just a minute. 5 of those 50% apartments are studios. 1 apartment of each unit size will be built out, or sorry, excuse me, there's 5 50% AMI units, and then there are also 2 1-bedroom 50% units. 1 of each of those bedroom sizes, 1 studio and 1 1-bedroom, is built out for persons with mobility impairment, so they'll be considered disabled accessible. The rents for those 50% AMI units are $1,075 for a studio and $1,095 for a 1-bedroom. The next income tier, that 80% area median income level, there are another 7 apartments that will be rented to households that have incomes that don't exceed that 80% of AMI. 6 of those 80% AMI apartments will be studios, and then 1 of them will be a 1-bedroom. 1 of the studio apartments has been built out for persons with hearing impairment. So if you require the features of a unit that has features for someone with hearing impairment, you will have priority for that unit. The rents for the 80% AMI units are $1,418 for a studio or $1,464 for a one-bedroom. And then finally, there's 4 apartments that are going to be rented to households with annual household incomes that do not exceed 110% of the area median income for Boston. All 4 of the 110% units are studios, and the rents for those units will be they'll be a little bit different. They're based on household income, which is not the case for the 50% and 80% units. So if you're interested in renting one of these studios that is, and your income falls, around the 110% mark, or I should say between the 80% and 110%, your rent will be, you'll know what your rent is prior to obviously agreeing to a lease, but we would not know exactly what your rent would be until we have reviewed your full application with your income and assets. So the rent could be as low as $1,806. It could be as high as $2,932, depending on the applicant's income. So the 50% and 80% AMI affordable rents are not set in accordance with the applicant's income or financial circumstances. So this means that those rents will not change if your income changes. For this housing program, the rents are set using a formula that is based on HUD, which is the Department of Housing and Urban Development, area median income for the Somerville or Boston area. The rent may increase one time per year, which typically occurs around the spring when HUD releases their area median income. There would always be advance notice if there was going to be a rent increase, and usually they're pretty gradual increases, and they're no more than about $25 to $75 each year. The rents would never change in the middle of your lease term either, and you'd always have advance notice of it. For the 110% AMI units, however, I mentioned that the rents are set based on household income. The rents for the 110% unit, even if they increase, will not exceed 30% of your gross monthly household income. And since there are more interested households than there are available units, of course, there's only 18 units available, and we've had a lot of applicants, a lot of interest in this property, as is always the case in Somerville. That's why we're having this lottery. So we know that, there's not going to be a unit for everyone, but you just want to get your name in there, your information in there if you are interested in these units, because we will be able to hold that lottery and hopefully you're at the top of the list. And that's how we'll proceed with that. So I see there's one question has come in. If there's any other questions about the logistical information, the basic overview of the units at Union 346 that I have already mentioned, let me know, type them into chat or unmute yourself. Next, I'm going to move on to the eligibility requirements for the affordable housing program. Oh, someone said here that the video has been cutting out a little bit. Hopefully that is not the case any longer. My internet seems to be okay right now. Anyone have any questions on anything that was covered so far? All right, so I'm going to move on to the eligibility details here. So there's 5 eligibility requirements, 5 main eligibility requirements. They're listed on page 5 of the information packet. If you haven't already, that information packet is listed on, or is posted on our website under the Union 346 listing. And most of the information that's covered in this session is in that packet. Even if you attend this session, though, we always recommend that you take a look at that information packet, because there's a lot of information in there that might be useful to you if you're interested in these apartments. So the first eligibility requirement for the program, the affordable housing program, is that households must have qualifying income and assets. We're going to talk more about the parameters in just a minute, but in general, a household or an applicant must have income below the 110% of AMI in order to qualify for one of the income tiers that I mentioned, the 50%, the 80%, and the 110% of area median income units. The second criteria for eligibility is that households cannot have more than $75,000 in total assets to apply for these or to be qualified for this affordable housing program. The total amount of retirement, college, or health savings accounts does not count towards your asset limit. So just keep that in mind. Those are excluded from the total assets when we're figuring what your household asset amount is. The third eligibility criteria, households cannot own a home prior to moving into or upon moving into the unit, the affordable housing unit at Union 346. So if you own a home now, it would need to be sold before leasing an affordable unit at the property. The fourth item to keep in mind for eligibility purposes is that this is a little unique to this lottery. Unrelated and unmarried household members who are applying together for this lottery would need to provide verification that you're currently living together following the lottery. So for example, if you're an engaged couple, you don't live together now, or maybe you're just two people who without a rental history together and you're looking to room together at Union 346, you might not be eligible for this lottery if you haven't lived together in the past. Page 7 of the information packet lists a little more detail on that. And then finally, all head of households cannot be full-time students. So, excuse me, head of a household who is also a full-time student is only eligible if there is another head of household who is not a full-time student in your family. So if, two college students are applying together and both of them are full-time students, they're not going to be eligible for this lottery. Just keep that in mind. That's a little unique to this one as well. All right, so to circle back to the first eligibility criteria to explain a little bit more, the income and assets of the household. So the income parameters are listed on your screen right now. I did my best to try to break it down for you based on the 3 different income tiers, the 50% AMI units, 80% AMI units, and the 110% AMI units. So since these are affordable apartments, they're being made available to renters at prices that are lower than identical or very similar units within the building. These parameters are set by the city for the affordable housing program. The 50% income floor, or the lowest income that a household needs to qualify for the affordable apartment, is based on the city requirement that households must make at least 2 times the gross rent. That's the amounts that you see on your screen here. So a one-person household, the lowest where you might qualify is $29,448. If you're making much less than $29,448, unless you have a housing subsidy or a voucher, a mobile voucher, you're not going to be eligible for this opportunity, unfortunately. The 80% income range show the figures for household incomes between 50% and 80% of AMI. And the 110% range shows the household income between 80% and 110% of AMI. So if you're looking at these now, if you're a one-person household and, if you're a one-person household and you make, $150,000, you won't be eligible for any of these apartments because you are above that one-bedroom 110% AMI limit. Similarly, if you're a 2-person household, your total household income is $40,000, you're going to qualify for a 50% AMI studio or 1-bedroom unit. You're also going to notice, looking at these income parameters, again, you're not going to qualify if you're under that $29,488 amount there. And like I said, the only exception is if you have a mobile voucher, you can disregard these income minimums entirely because your voucher that was issued to you is going to pick up much of your rent amount. So you do not need to have a minimum income. If you do have a housing voucher, we also want to mention that you should check with the agency that issues your voucher to confirm that the rents at Union 346 will be permissible with your voucher. They would need to be within the payment standards or the maximum rents for the affordable housing program that you have a voucher from. The leasing office is eventually going to confirm with your housing agency that the rents are permissible, but it would be best for you to know sooner rather than later if these rents will work for you. Just a reminder again, we do not need verification of your income at the time that you are submitting your lottery application. When you do submit your lottery application and you are found eligible for the lottery, you'll get a documentation requirements guide from us at SCB Housing with our confirmation email. And the guide details exactly what types of documentation will be needed from you depending on your source of income later on in the process. So for example, if you are working, it will let you know how many pay stubs or how many bank statements we're going to need in order to confirm the income that was reported on your lottery application. Regardless of what your income is, all households are going to be required to submit copies of your federal tax returns from the last year. So you're going to want to take a look at that verification or that income verification guide so you're prepared for what you will need to submit if you are one of the top households on the waiting list after the lottery. So income for this program, even though we are not going to be verifying your income right now, I'd like to give you a basic overview of how your income will be counted eventually. So income for this program is counted as a projection of your income over the next 12 months for all household members. So this includes all income from household members, including bonuses, overtime, that sort of thing, not just your standard wages. The only exceptions to this are minors, so anyone under the age of 18 in the household who is earning a wage. We're not going to count their wage income for purposes of confirming your total household income. And then also dependent full-time students who are working, we would only count the first $480 of the wage income when we're determining your eligibility. We are required to count gross income, not net. So the amount that you make before taxes. We're fully aware, obviously, that nobody is taking home their full salary, but gross income is required to be counted according to the program. And then how we calculate income is not one size fits all. Everyone's income circumstances are unique. So some applicants have a steady weekly salary that's consistent throughout the year, while others are self-employed, they might be working seasonally. In those circumstances, we might need to look further back into the past in order to anticipate your projected income for the next 12 months. And then specifically for applicants who are self-employed, you're going to need to complete a profit and loss statement and provide supporting documentation for your business. There is a template for a profit and loss statement at the end of the program certification later on in the process that you would be required to fill out if you were moving forward in this process. If you're self-employed, your business expenses are taken into account, but for anyone who's not self-employed, it is always just a gross income with no expenses that we do need to count. And then in general, any income that you have been making in the past, we're going to assume that you will continue to make it in the future unless we have some sort of definitive documentation stating that you're no longer going to be earning that income source. So that could be a letter from an employer that, bonuses are not available in the coming year, that sort of thing. We're just not permitted to accept statements from applicants about what their income may be in the coming year. So when you're thinking about income, you want to make sure the application is going to guide you to report any income sources, but it's not just wages. We're looking for you to disclose everything that you have coming into your household. It could be wage income, Social Security, child support benefits, unemployment benefits, workman's compensation, pensions, that sort of thing. Assets that are generating income. All right, so assets on the Topic of assets, a reminder again that this lottery has a $75,000 asset limit. So when you're totaling your household assets, we will exclude amounts that are in retirement, college, or savings, health savings accounts. But you're still going to need to report those amounts on your application and provide statements after the lottery if you're invited to move forward in the process. If there is income generated by your assets, that income is going to be counted towards your total household income. In addition, although the balance of retirement accounts doesn't count towards your asset limit, the program requires us to count 70% of the full amount and then impute 0.06% of income from that amount. If you have a retirement account, there's an example of how this might work for your household on page 7 of the information packet. So again, even though those are excluded, those health, college, and retirement savings are excluded from your total household asset amount, we still are going to need statements for them. All right, so we covered a lot of the eligibility criteria for the housing program and the lottery itself. So just a reminder again, if you have any questions, let us know. Good question. The question came in, does Somerville have resident-only parking stickers? I don't live in that area, so I don't know for sure, but I would assume they do, but I do not know with 100% certainty. I know that Cambridge does, obviously the neighborhoods of Boston do, so I don't know, right around that area where the property is located, I don't know what those what those streets look like. Resident parking permit, yep, thank you. All right, so the next part here, the lottery process. Again, just a reminder, any other questions, let me know. As I mentioned earlier, if you're interested, you should apply as early as possible to get the process started. Also want to mention on your lottery application, if you are interested in more than one unit size. So if you think you might be interested in both a studio and a 1-bedroom unit, you should indicate that on your application. There's really no downside to doing so, but there is a potential downside if you only apply to 1 unit size and then later on you decide you might be interested in both a studio or a 1-bedroom. And the reason for that is because you won't be on the waiting list for the other bedroom size. So you want to get your name on both waiting lists if you're potentially interested in both the studio and the 1-bedroom. Okay, so once the lottery application comes in, we're going to review it and we'll contact you if there's any information that is missing or appears incorrect. If you're completing the lottery application online, soon after you're submitting the application, you're going to receive an automatic confirmation email that it was received. If you don't receive that confirmation email, it didn't go through. So you want to make sure that you're just careful when you're submitting that. And if you fill out something incorrectly during the process of filling out the online application, it pops up in red and it lets you know that some information is missing. So if you are found eligible for the lottery, you're going to be sent that email that I referenced a little bit earlier with your lottery application number. And that number is going to be in the form of a series of numbers. This is the number that's going to be drawn in the lottery. It's not a ranking of any sort at this point. It just corresponds with the order in which you received your application. So if you were the very first person to submit a complete application for Union 346, your number is going to be, your lottery number is going to be A.001. Also in this letter, which is really an email, if we have an email address for you, it will confirm whether your household reported being a resident of Somerville. Or if you have a household member that works full-time in Somerville. Applicants who have indicated that they either live or work full-time in Somerville will be required after the lottery to provide supporting documentation. So you want to be sure that you're completing this section accurately because it's going to impact your placement on the waiting list. So if you report that you are a Somerville resident on your application, but then when you're asked for verification of that after the fact, you're unable to submit something to us, you're going to be forfeiting your position on the waiting list. So just make sure that that's filled out accurately. As I mentioned before, all of the units, all of the waiting lists for the units at Union 346 are going to have local preference, which means that local preference households will have priority for those units, for all of the units, and will have positions ahead of all non-local preference households on the waiting list. So when we're compiling those waiting lists, if there's 100 people on the waiting list and there's 20 people who have local preference, the top 20 slots are going to be the local preference household, and then the bottom 80 slots will be the non-local preference household. Again, if you're one of the local preference households, you're going to have to verify, you're going to have to submit verification confirming that you either live or work full-time in Somerville. That email will also confirm the bedroom sizes that you're applying for, as well as whether or not you've indicated that you need a disabled, accessible, or hearing impaired unit. And then again, applicants that are in need of units with those special features are going to have priority for those units over households who don't need the special features of the unit. Also with that email, the documentation requirements guide that I mentioned is going to be attached. The guide is going to provide you with details of all the items that you would need to submit prior to final approval by SEB Housing. And we again just suggest that you take a look at that guide so you're aware of all the documentation that you will be required to submit to move forward in the process if you are one of the top households. If at any time during this process you're found to be ineligible for the lottery, so maybe you're over income, under income, you're going to be informed by email, and we encourage you to let us know of any questions so we can clarify things for you. The lottery itself is going to be held virtually on May 31st at 6 p.m. It's going to be held via Zoom, just like this information session. Attending the lottery is not required. All applicants will be sent the lottery results, hopefully no later than the following day. The lottery can be several hours long for these types of lotteries because there are a lot of applicants and we are required to draw each of the numbers. So, and that again, during the lottery, nothing is sorted by preference or anything. So attendance, like I said, is not required because the results will be sent to everyone, hopefully by the next business day. So during the lottery, every number, like I said, is going to be drawn, not just the top household for each waiting list. So in general, it is more beneficial if your number is called earlier in the lottery, but it is not going to be the deciding factor on whether or not you'll be moving forward in the process to lease one of these units, because we do still need to sort the results by priority afterwards, which, priorities being local preference, and then whether or not households require the special features of the disabled, accessible, and hearing impairment unit. So for example, if the first 10 applicants drawn belong to first application numbers, I should say, drawn belong to households who don't qualify for local preference, they're still going to be placed on the waiting list behind all local preference households because they have priority in this lottery. The purpose of the lottery is just to establish the waiting list and order of the waiting list. Also, households who were entered into the lottery may later on in the process be found ineligible by the leasing office or potentially by SEB Housing, because we still need to confirm income amounts and all of that. So if you are drawn later on in the lottery, you shouldn't lose hope at being able to rent one of these apartments. You might still have the opportunity to move forward depending on how many people ahead of you on the waiting list drop off. Okay, so I have a question here. If the application was already submitted, how do I get my name on both sizes, both the studio and the one bedroom? You can just email us at union346@sebhousing.com right here, and let us know that you want to update your application. So we can basically just update the database with everybody's lottery information, and we can go ahead and check both those boxes for you. Yep. So you can update. That's a good point. Anyone who has already submitted a application, you can go ahead and let us know if you have any changes to income or anything like that to provide. All right. So after the lottery, we're going to populate the waiting list. And again, we're going to take local preference and whether or not you require special features into consideration. And when you're reviewing the email from us after we process after we consolidate the waiting list and send them to you, you're going to find your lottery application number on the waiting list that are sent to you. And then you'll be able to see exactly where you fall on that list. It's going to be a very long list. There's lots of people who are interested in this lottery, but hopefully you're able to find your number on there. And if you have any questions on what you're looking at, you can let us know. The top households on the waiting list will be invited to move forward to the next step in the process, which is to complete your program certification with SCB Housing. And that would be the point where you're submitting your income, asset, and tax documentation. If you're near the top of the list, great, but don't take that to mean that you should immediately give notice to any current landlords that you might have because you haven't yet been approved to rent at Union 346. There's still a few steps in the process. So following the lottery and us compiling the waiting list, SCB Housing is going to reach out to as many households on each waiting list as there are available units. So there are 5 50% AMI studio apartments, and we'll invite 5 households from that waiting list forward. Those households are going to be asked to submit all the required documents within 5 days. If not all documentation is submitted within those first 5 days, SCB Housing will send up to 3 incomplete notices to households, giving them an opportunity to complete their application. If the household ultimately is not able to complete their application after those 3 extension notices, they're going to be issued an ineligibility letter, and their position on the waiting list is going to be forfeited. So if you have an updated email address during this process, or if you're having trouble, getting emails, just make sure you're checking your spam folders, trash folders, whatever might sometimes happen to you. I know that sometimes I have emails that go straight to spam, even though they shouldn't have. So just be vigilant about that over the next couple months if you're applying for lotteries. And then, of course, throughout the process, we're available for any questions or concerns you have following the receipt of an ineligibility or denial notice. Applicants always have the chance to appeal denials, and the resources for those appeals will be provided in writing in a detailed notice when you get information from us. We also want to mention that SCB might contact households ahead of time if they are not yet at the top of the waiting list in order to verify preference or priority. So we might be asking some folks who are further down the line or further down the waiting list for verification that you reside in Somerville. And we sometimes do this to help speed up the leasing process because, as you might imagine, not everybody who reported being a full-time resident of Somerville is in the end. So if you're found program eligible by SCB Housing, you're going to be issued a proceed letter, is what we call it. And you'll have 5 days to reach out to Union 346's leasing office so you can begin that third and final step in the process, which is applying for a lease. Again, the lease screening is separate from the screenings that SCB Housing is doing. It's going to include completing a rental application, and the review will be similar or identical to the market rate applicants at Union 346 in terms of credit, background, reference checks, that sort of thing. This is the point in the process that having a position near the top of the waiting list is particularly beneficial. If you're the top household on the waiting list, you have the first chance to reserve an affordable unit. So for example, if you're the first person on that 1-bedroom 50% AMI waiting list, you're going to have the first choice at reserving one of those 1-bedroom 50% units. This is true even if someone behind you has completed the leasing process or lease eligibility process before you. The leasing office still needs to honor the order of the waiting list, regardless of who completes their application first. You'll be able to tour the unit, make your decision based on whatever factors are important to you. For example, there might be an affordable unit that is on the floor of the building that you would like to select, or there might be a unit that's available first, whatever is important to you. During the process, households who fail to respond to deadlines or invitations from that leasing office, same thing, you might be sent an ineligibility notice. So you just want to make sure that you are responding to notices from both SCB Housing or the leasing office during this process. You don't want to miss out on any of that. So the question that came in here, is there any way to know what will be required? So if you apply for the lottery, you're going to be sent an email that confirms all of your information, and it's also going to have an attachment that, if you're eligible, it's going to have an attachment for the documentation requirements guide, and all of that information is in there in terms of, if you have wages, how many pay stubs do we need? If you have applied for local preference, what information will we need from you, and all of that. So that will be sent to you ahead of time. So you'll know exactly what you would need to gather should you be asked to move forward in the process. So once you're leased, if you've gone through this whole process, you've leased one of the apartments, you're done with screenings until the lease renewal date. At that point, we hope that you've enjoyed your year at Union 346, and if you want to continue living there, you would just need to recertify your income each year with the leasing office prior to your lease renewal. If upon lease renewal, your income has increased and is now above that 50%, 80%, or 110% AMI amount, that's fine. Households remain eligible for the affordable apartment as long as the household income doesn't exceed 140% of that year's 50 or 80% AMI amount. For the 110% units, it's a little bit different. You're going to remain eligible as long as your household income doesn't exceed 120% of that year's AMI. So a little bit of wiggle room there within that first year and subsequent years. Pages 16 and 17 of the information packet list the 120% and 140% amount for different household sizes. So if you're anticipating an increase in your income in the coming year and you're curious about those figures, they're there for you. So that about covers everything that I wanted to get through in the information packet. Again, that along with the lottery application, both the link to the lottery application and the paper lottery application are available on our website under Union 346. And I'll stick around for a minute if anybody has any questions. Can I still apply to the lottery even if I work in Cambridge, not Somerville? So anyone can apply for the lottery. You don't have to be working in the city of Somerville or living in the city of Somerville. You can still apply, but if you don't live full-time in Somerville or work in Somerville, you're just not going to have priority, meaning anyone who does have that local preference priority is going to be higher than you are on the waiting list. But you can always still apply. Any other questions before I let you go? Encourage everyone, if you're interested in these units, get those applications in before May 4th, because that is the deadline. And filling that out online will be the easiest way, like I said. If you have any questions that you think of after tonight, you can email us at union346@scbhousing.com. All right, thank you all for, oh, one more. Do we pay first, last, and security deposit if we're chosen? Yes, so there are still all of those, yep. All of those are still on the table. I don't know exactly what they're asking for. I'm assuming all three. Anyone else? All right, thank you all. Have a great night.